Hello, welcome to my channel. This is Four Wheels in the Seat. My name is Alex Dalrymple, and every week you can see a brand new car reviewed. You don't want to miss one though, so please hit the subscribe button down below and give me a like if you enjoy the video. Today I'm back in the Kia Sportage. This particular model is a mid-spec SX Plus petrol DCT 7-speed automatic. Long name. And I reviewed the top spec GT line last year. You can check out that video just by clicking the link up there. Outwardly, the two cars look pretty similar. There's not a lot to tell them apart from the outside. The only really notable differences being the design of the 19-inch alloys. The front light cluster uses a bulb setup for the front indicator as opposed to an LED, and it also misses out on the projector LED headlights. And there is also no sunroof in this car. Other than that, the two look pretty much the same, which is fine because the Sportage is a really good looking SUV. Under the bonnet, it's the same story as well. A 4-cylinder 1.6 litre turbo engine which outputs 132 kilowatts and 265 newton meters of torque. Fuel economy comes in at 7.2 litres per 100 kilometres. It's all-wheel drive with power driven to those wheels via a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. So the tall and the short of all of that is that this car actually has plenty of go. It drives really nicely around town. It's zippy, for the want of a better term, and you can even do a little bit of light off-roading, which is aided, or helped rather, by its lockable diff. So if you get yourself into a bit of a tight spot, you can apply an equal amount of torque to all four wheels. The interior of this car does have a few more differences, however. The center console screen is the same 12.3-inch unit that we get in the GT line. It's really good software, runs wide Apple CarPlay and Android Auto if you prefer. And there's an 8-speaker Harman Kardon sound system, which is a rare thing to see in a Kia. Normally you'd only find that in sort of a mid-spec European cars. Under the center console screen is one of my favorite Kia features, a touch-sensitive screen that allows you to switch between shortcuts for the center console screen and climate controls. It is seriously such an innovative feature, and Kia do this pretty much better than anybody else. I know it seems like a simple thing, but I love it. Under that, a tray to store your phone. No wireless charging in this spec. You've got to go up to the GT line for that. Then we've got the heated seat controls. You might notice that there's a couple of blanked out buttons there. Well, in the GT line, that's for your ventilated seat controls, but we miss out on that here, unfortunately. A couple of mechanical style cup holders here, and then we've got the gear shifter, which is a real throwback because it reminds me of the gear shifter in my dad's Ford Fairmont from the 1980s. It's big and solid, has a nice big button in it, just has such a good feel to it. The GT line, of course, has a rotary dial to change gears, more of that drive-by-wire transmission. So to see something kind of big and old school here is really nice. The driver's instrument cluster is another thing that's a little bit different. I've never seen one quite like this. It's got the usual small LED screen in the middle, which I've seen in other Kias, which, you know, has all the drive information and stuff like that on it. But on either side of it are two segment LEDs, which display your speed and the tacho. And yeah, I've never seen it quite like this. It's a bit of again, another sort of throwback to the 80s and old school digital dashboards that, you know, we used to see in Knight Rider on Kit. He had kind of a display like that for his speed. So to see these numbers kind of counting up and down really quickly is a nice touch. Steering wheel feels really good. I love this Kia steering wheel. Has a lot of controls on it, but once you get used to them, they're pretty easy to use. Seating position is excellent. Fantastic view out the front. Great view through the rear vision mirror. The wing mirrors are nice and big. A very comfortable place to be in these nice leather seats as well, which have electric adjustment as well as lumbar support. So doing a long trip in this car is not a frightening prospect. In terms of refinement, really good. It is very quiet in here. You don't hear much from the engine at all until it gets up to around about 2000 RPMs, and then there's a bit of noise in the background, but it's not huge. This car is so quiet when it stopped at the lights. I actually thought it had automatic on-off, like a lot of cars do. When you stop at the lights, the engine turns off to save petrol. This car doesn't even have that feature, but it idles at 600 RPM and you cannot hear a thing. It's like being in an electric car. It is really, really impressive. There is also augmented engine noise as an option. You can turn that on in the center screen. I don't know why you'd do it. I don't know why you'd want fake engine noise over the top of the real life engine noise that's there already. It seems like something that would really only belong in an electric car rather than a petrol, but the option's there if you like it. There are a few different drive modes: normal, sport, eco, and smart. Yeah, look, I don't love sport. It's just a little bit too touchy on the accelerator, and smart just seems to get a little bit muddled as to what your driving conditions are, sort of making the engine rev unnecessarily when you perhaps don't really want it to. I think normal is really the best place to be. In terms of safety gear that the GT line gets that the SX Plus misses out on, the only things we're missing are blind spot cameras on the wing mirrors, surround view monitoring, and parking collision avoidance. Other than that, the two cars are pretty well level pegged. Just driving right now next to the previous generation Sportage, which is a not bad looking car. It has a bit more of a VW feel to it perhaps than the current one does. But I do have to say, I think this car is much better looking than the old one. Some of the cars that this car competes against are the Hyundai Tucson, the Subaru Forester, and the Mazda CX-5. Look, all three of those are very different from each other. The Tucson and the Sportage, I think, especially since they ultimately come from the same company, are very, very similar, and it really just sort of comes down to style as to which one you like best. The Forester I like to think of as being closer to a wagon rather than a fully fledged SUV, just because it rides much lower to the ground. I mean, that's not to say it rides low to the ground, it still has plenty of clearance, but it's not really quite as high riding as this. The Mazda CX-5 is probably a little more dynamic to drive. It likes to be thrown into corners a little bit harder than this does, but it is getting on a little bit, and the all-new Mazda CX-60 probably outshines it in many regards, but it is also that much more expensive. So this car has a dual clutch transmission, which is something you normally only see in performance cars, but it does mean that the Sportage has smoother gear changes and improved fuel economies. And the engine does kind of, sounds like it revs unnecessarily sometimes. You put your foot down and there's not a lot happening, and then suddenly you'll lurch forward. Once you kind of learn how to finesse the accelerator, that problem kind of does go away a little bit though. This car's collision warning system does have a nasty habit of going off when there are parked cars on the left-hand side on a twisty road. It just cannot tell the difference between cars that are directly in front of you and ones that are parked on the left-hand side, meaning it is going off incessantly on twisty roads. Bit annoying. So coming in at just over $48,000, which is about $6,000 less than the top spec GT line, I think the Kia Sportage SX Plus Petrol is probably the, and I hate using this term, sweet spot in the lineup, because it is extremely well equipped. You can do a little bit of light off-roading with it with its all-wheel drive capability, and it is perfectly capable and comfortable as a daily driver around town to take the kids to school, do whatever errands you need to do. It's a really good, nice car, and it could just be the four wheels in the seat that your family is looking for.